All right, everybody. We are going to learn tonight, continuing Hilchot Shabbat, Bezrat Hashem Yitbarach, as we proceed to Melacha number 36, which is Melechet Makeh BePatish. And it's a very important Melacha. It's got a lot of practical applications. There's a ton to talk about. Bezrat Hashem, we will go through as much as we can tonight. Bezrat Hashem, we would like to learn for the Refuah Shlema of Kol Cholei Yisrael, especially for Avi Ben Sarah and for Rabbi Baruch Ben Tzivya. And if we have any other names you want to add, now's a great time. Moshe Ben Chana. Anybody else? Okay. Bezrat Hashem, they should all have a Refuah Shlema b'toch Shar Cholei Yisrael. Amen. Okay. This melacha is very unique. This melacha, Makeh BePatish, literally means hit with a hammer. If it's cold, are you guys cold, by the way? No? You're good? Okay. Makeh BePatish literally means hit with a hammer. Okay? Now, hitting with a hammer is not an accurate description of what this melacha means at all. But I'll just tell you the root of where it comes from. The Mishnah in Masechet Shabbat talks about how a hammer, when you bang with a hammer, often enough what ends up happening is that the metal gets kind of dented. And they used to have an anvil, which is a big bar of metal that they would use to take that dented hammer, bang it on the anvil so that the hammer would straighten out. So the dent would become not dented anymore. And to make a long story short, Makeh BePatish means that whenever you take something and you, in this case, you're perfecting an imperfection in a vessel, that is going to be a violation of Makeh BePatish. Now, included in that is actually creating a brand new vessel in the first place.
Wait, you perfect something.
Taking a vessel that already, so it's one of two things really. In the case of the title, which is Makeh BePatish, what we're talking about is the idea that often enough, the hammer that was used in order to bang on either, we're talking about the construction of the Mishkan, of course, the sheets of metal that were used for the coatings of maybe the Aron Kodesh or whatever it is that we're talking about. They need to be flat and straight. They would bang on them with hammers. And the hammers, if they got pointy, if they got bent out of shape, if you bang with that kind of hammer, you could mess up your metal, your gold, your whatever it may be, right? With gold, silver. And for that reason, your hammer is not really usable right now. You must fix the imperfection. So you take that hammer and you bang on an anvil in order to flatten it so that it's nice and flat so you can continue banging with it. So you took that imperfection and you fixed the imperfection. So that is where we find it in the construction of the Mishkan, the fixing of the imperfection of the hammer. That's called Makeh BePatish, hitting with the hammer. And included in that is not only when you fix an imperfection, but you actually create a vessel in the first place. That's also included in Makeh BePatish. It's a little bit different than Boneh. Boneh, we also spoke about the idea that sometimes when you bring certain parts together, you could, like for example, shoving a peg into a broom that is a little bit loose so that it's tighter, that we call that Boneh. Over there, that was when you combine different parts together. We're going to see that Makeh BePatish is either perfecting a vessel or creating a vessel in the first place. And that is a very broad category. There's a lot to say about it, so Be'ezrat Hashem will get to it. In the Ashkenazi world, it's called Makeh BePatish. And they use it for a slang. Like you want to say there was the straw that broke the camel's back, right? They say the Makeh BePatish was that he X, Y, and Z, right? He did this, and that, right? That's how they, right? In other words, it's the final blow of the hammer that fixed it, that finished the job. That's the idea. finished the job. It took something that was imperfect and made it perfect. You took a plate that had a dent. You had a kiddush cup or a kiddush cup plate that fell on the floor and was dented. And you decided to bang out that dent, right? Okay, that's called Makeh BePatish, right? Why? Because you took out the imperfection of that vessel. That's called Makeh BePatish. When you take a vessel that has an imperfection and you fix the imperfection, included in that is when you actually make a vessel in the first place, that is definitely Makeh BePatish too. Okay? Are we clear on the concept? Okay, so we're going to see a lot of examples of this now. Be'ezrat Hashem Yitbarach. First example, a person has a metal hanger, one of those hangers you get from the dry cleaners, and you need to reach something. It's in between two couches. You need something skinny that can pull it out from the two couches, or you need something that can reach a little bit further high up, and you fashion a long hook out of the metal hanger. You just made a vessel. It's called Makeh BePatish. Wouldn't be boneh. Boneh is combining different parts together. Makeh BePatish means you just fashioned the vessel. That's not allowed. That's called making a kli. That's not allowed on Shabbat. It's called Makeh BePatish. Again, you didn't hit with a hammer. There's no hammer involved. But over here, it's called making a vessel. Anything where you create a vessel. That's Rashi in the Gemara. Anything that finishes off a vessel is considered to be Makeh BePatish. Okay.
What do you mean by finishing on?
Fixing an imperfection or creating a new vessel. But the point is, you're creating. You're doing something that finishes the job. That's the idea. I'll give you another example. You ever buy a spoon? You ever buy a package of spoons? Some of the spoons have excess plastic around the sides of them. And you say, forget about that. You know, you go and you take a scissor and you cut it off. You just fixed the imperfection of that spoon in a vessel. Clear? Yes? Okay, great. A new shoe that never had shoelaces. You want to put shoelaces into that shoe, right? So that, according to all opinions, since you are making it into a functioning vessel, beforehand you couldn't wear that shoe. It would just slip right off. But now you've got shoelaces there, you put it in. So that is actually going to be called Makeh BePatish. You're making a vessel. Can you put shoelaces into an old shoe where you already have had shoelaces there, and now for some reason you no longer have shoelaces there? That is a big machloket haposkim. Chacham Vadia allows it. Mishnah Berurah says it's forbidden. The Or Letzion, Chacham Ben Tzion Abba Shaul, says you could do it only if you ask a child to do it, not yourself, a minor. Big machloket. So obviously you want to stay away from it, ideally, because his point is, right now your shoe, true at one point, was usable, but now being that there are no shoelaces there, to put in a new one is actually a form of making a new vessel. We're going to see a halacha that kind of contradicts that a little bit, but nevertheless, meaning there's a reason why Chacham Vadia says it's allowed. We're going to see soon why. But nevertheless, there is room to be machmir about that too. So make sure before Shabbat you have shoelaces in your shoes. It's a good idea. Okay, that way you avoid the machloket. Sometimes there are strings hanging from your clothing. You have some strings that were maybe a little bit of a fray or here or there, and you just want to remove them. So you go and you take a knife and you cut it out, or you take a scissor and cut it out. That is 100% Makeh BePatish, right? Why is that Makeh BePatish? You had these unwanted frayed strings hanging from your shirt. You don't like them there. They are an imperfection in your shirt. The Gemara actually says it explicitly. It's a real sugya in the Gemara. Guy has a cloak and there's stuff hanging from the bottom. He just goes and takes it right off. He has fixed the imperfection. That is considered to be Makeh BePatish.
Sorry about that.
Yes.
Sometimes it happens and it's automatically, you just pull it.
Well, is it actually a part of your clothing?
No, but you see, it's sometimes string coming out.
It's like a part of your clothing though? It's not like a string from outside that's
No,
out?
it's
It's
not
part of
coming
your
out.
clothing.
Yes.
How do you pull it out? Doesn't it tear the rest of the
Because
material?
it's, it's loose.
Yeah.
If it gets stuck, I leave it.
Uh-huh.
But if it's, automatic,
So
without thinking.
if it's detached already that it comes out, it might be,
Yes.
it's already detached?
I don't know, sometimes it comes with the sleeve,
Uh-huh.
whatever.
So if it's still, I'm talking about when it's still attached to the clothing. So you're saying it's like a feather coming out of a coat type thing? A string. Okay, so what I'm talking about is it's attached to the clothing, and you snip it off. That's Makeh BePatish. If it's not attached, I don't know. If it's not attached to your clothing, then I don't really know how it's there. It's material that just kind of detached from itself, so it's already out.
Where you see that sentence happening, the string coming out from the.
And it's detached.
Yes.
It's woven differently. Like
Woven.
I have a sweater, for example, like the strings are not the material that holds the shirt, but they're like a design. So when you pull it, it's not taking anything else. You just pull it off and the whole thing comes off. But it looks like a run string, if that makes sense. It's just
okay.
coming off of the sweater. When
Is
you
it
pull
part of the sweater?
Yeah, it's like a design of the sweater, but it's not holding it together, I guess.
But
yeah, it was meant to be a part of the design.
It was meant to be a part of the design. So therefore, and so if you have an extra part of that, and you pull that and you pull that out, so that would be Makeh BePatish, sure, right? Because it's meant to be there, and that extra part is not meant to be there. You remove it, so that would be fixing it, sure. Okay, good. Let's say you had a pillowcase that never had the feathers or the down or the foam or whatever it is that you put into that pillow, and you make the pillow for the first time on Shabbat. That would be called making a vessel. That's called Makeh BePatish, right? That's a big problem. To make a pillow, to create a pillow, not to take an existing pillow and put it into a pillowcase. It means I'm talking about making a pillow for the first time. Let's say I saw this interesting chidush as well. Let's say you take a Magen David and you put it on a necklace for the first time, right? Or you take the name, a charm, right? You put it onto the necklace. So I saw poskim say that's also called Makeh BePatish because you finished the necklace, you made it into a new thing.
So you can't, like a girl can't do make a beaded necklace on
Shabbat. Right. I saw once a woman, Jewish woman, with a necklace that said Mem Shin Hey. So I immediately thought Moshe. So why do you have a necklace that says Moshe? Moshe is a man's name. She said, no, in Yiddish it's Masha. There's a name called Masha in Yiddish. So is that okay? So okay, fine.
But it doesn't make sense to me if you're just taking the string and you're putting beads in.
Yes.
Why would that be?
Making a vessel. Beforehand, you didn't have this beautiful beaded necklace. Now you do. So you created a vessel.
I guess I get.
Right? Okay. Great. You have a question? Yeah.
Yeah, so does intention count?
Sure.
With sweater, you don't want the design. It's just like part of the eventually it comes off. That's
The-
not perfecting the garment for you, that's actually.
No, I'm talking about when there's a little bit of it extra that's coming out, and that part you don't want, you snip it off.
What if it's like part of the design? No, it's just bothering you that it's loose, but you don't want it to be. If you're not perfecting it, that's not your efficacy.
Mhm.
It's just bothering you that it's.
So what are you gaining by removing it now?
You're just not.
So that's also fixing it.
Really?
Right? I think so. If you don't want it like that and now you fixed it. I mean, to tie it and to untie it, to use it normally, that's not a problem. But if you are taking away something that's a nuisance and you cannot use it properly until you take it away, that could be a fixing as well, I think. Okay. Yeah.
I don't know if this falls under this category, but Are you allowed to tighten a strap? Like something that like the,
Like a Velcro strap?
not a Velcro, like this? No, yes, like that.
Yeah, sure.
Even on clothing, like there's no issue with that?
I don't think so. Yeah. Okay, great. Let's continue. We spoke about banging a bowl or a plate into shape, like a kiddush cup or a kiddush plate. That's considered to be Makeh BePatish. Very good. Okay. So now, before we get to that, one more example. We spoke about this already in the past as well. Glasses that bent out of shape. And it was a hard material. It's not wearable anymore. Now you have to go ahead and you have to bend them back into shape. Can't do that on Shabbat. And let me give you a little bit of an intro over here. There are going to be two categories. One is called repairing an item, and one is called restoring an item. Restoring is going to be fine. Repairing is going to be a problem. Okay, so the glasses need to be recreated. Basically, the glasses are so bent out of shape they're not wearable. You have to repair them, right? So that is going to be a problem on Shabbat, because when something is already at the point where it's no longer considered to be a vessel because it's so not usable, so at that point it's not considered to be a vessel. Now the only exception to that rule is when the vessel itself is the kind of vessel that is used in a way that from time to time it becomes not usable. And I'll give you an example. This is a very interesting example from the Poskim. The Shulchan Aruch holds like this, coming from the Gemara really. What happens if a person has a pillow? All the feathers came out of that pillow. Now, if you would ask me, I would say it is forbidden to put the feathers back into that pillow because you have a pillow. It's not a functioning vessel. You can't use it anymore. To stuff in those feathers again would be to recreate a pillow. That's a problem. Shulchan Aruch does not say that. Shulchan Aruch says that since it happens that pillows lose their feathers a lot, and sometimes even to the point where they're totally out of the pillow, for that reason, to put them back is not to recreate a pillow, but rather to restore it, because that's how pillows are. They lose their feathers all the time. That's how he learns. And therefore, we hold that you could put feathers back into a pillow, could reinsert them, because sometimes even all of the feathers come out. It's not a nullification of the pillow, but rather it's a temporary interruption of its use, which is a kind of difficult thing to digest, but that's the halacha, what it says in Shulchan Aruch. So therefore, we hold that you could put feathers back into a pillow, or let's say you have some feathers that came out of a coat. Technically, you put them back in. On the other hand, if a leg of a chair came out, if a handle of a broom came out, right, to then go ahead and to reconnect them would be a problem. What?
That's bonnet.
It would be bonnet if you would stick them together with something else, like you put a peg in there. Yeah. Okay, good. Now,
What about hair?
hair?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
I think sometimes you fix the hair and maybe some hair came out. So
Okay, that's a question of gozez.
was this?
Right. So I'll tell you which hair could be a problem of Makeh BePatish. A sheitel, right? Let's say you have a sheitel that's unwearable, right? And you have to fix it and you have to set it and the whole thing. And now you make a functioning vessel from something that was absolutely not wearable. That could be Makeh BePatish, right? Because you took it and you redid it. Another example, which is going to be fine. Let's say a person is walking and they get caught in a thorn bush. So now there are thorns in your shirt, in your skirt, whatever it may be, right? So now, can you remove the thorns? Absolutely. Why? Because your shirt and your skirt are not nullified. They are still a shirt. It's still a shirt and a skirt. It's just that you temporarily cannot use it because of the thorns that are there, but it's still a functioning vessel. So for that reason, you just have to remove that which is preventing you from using your vessel. right? It's not fixing the vessel. The vessel is fine. It's just there's something that's not allowing you to use it. Oh, the difference? So can you remove thorns from a skirt? Yes. Right, okay.
Thorns
what?
from a skirt? What?
Thorns from a skirt.
What do you mean thorns?
That's exactly what I mean.
But thorns are on a rose.
When you
Well, you walked into that rose, unfortunately, and the thorns got into your skirt.
So you're just saying
Rose
if
bush.
you
Right.
walk into a rose bush and thorns get into your skirt.
Right. So the question is to remove those thorns. Is that called Makeh BePatish? Am I fixing a vessel
Why? though? It's
because I have a skirt that's not usable, and now it's usable? I took out the thorns. So maybe it's just like a bowl that was bent out of shape and I couldn't use it, and now I banged it back into shape, and now I could use it. Before I could use
But I
it.
feel like it's a
yeah.
sakana.
Okay, well, I mean,
Because if
that's
it's
not
a
a
sakana-
life-threatening sakana, right? It's not
I
something
feel
that.
like it's a sakana because it can make you bleed.
So that's why. So because it's a sakana, we won't call it
That's-
muktzeh. We're gonna waive muktzeh for that because it's a sakana, right? Because it's a danger, perhaps, right? Could hurt somebody. But there's a question of maybe we won't allow you to take them out of. Maybe you have to go get changed and then after Shabbat take out the thorns, right? Right? Who says that you're allowed to remove it? Maybe it's fixing the shirt. Maybe it's fixing the skirt. So the answer to that is no. The skirt and the shirt are functioning vessels, but right now you can't use them because there's something that's temporarily blocking your use of those things, which is the thorn that's in the skirt.
Well, why would you go there in the first place?
It was a mistake. By accident, you walked into it.
Because how by
It
accident?
happens. Sometimes a person, there's a, whatever. Point is, it happened at some point. Okay, good. Now, okay. Sometimes, give an example. Sometimes somebody, you have a hat or you have some kind of nice, maybe nice hat or something that you wanted to wear, and the kid stepped on it, crushed it, and you want to push it up so that it's not crushed anymore. So that was perfectly fine to do. Why? Because your hat is not broken. It's not a vessel anymore. You're just trying to restore it to the way that it was previously. And therefore, it's okay. Okay.
So if a man wears a black hat and for whatever reason it gets bent out of shape, they
You
can
could,
fix it.
yes, correct. Good. Okay. Let's give some common Makeh BePatish issues. Person has a screw coming out of the link on his watch, right? You hear the guy has a watch, he's got links, right? And some, there are screws that keep the links, right? Sometimes the screw comes out. Can he screw it back in? Not on Shabbat.
No.
Not on Shabbat. That's called fixing the vessel, right? Can't do that. What about winding a watch or a clock to keep it working? Right? That's something you can't do either because you want to fix it so that it should keep on working. We said you cannot do that. Okay. Person has a new suit or a jacket. So sometimes, like over here, let's say this is still shut. You want to open it. You want to tear it open so you could use the pocket. Can't do that. That's called Makeh BePatish because now I have a functioning pocket. Beforehand, I wasn't able to use it. Now I could use it. Same thing for if you have a shirt that they never opened up the hole of the where the person puts out the head. So that opening of that hole would be a big problem. That's making the vessel. Okay. Okay. Another very common question. Unfortunately, this happens. Person has a clogged toilet on Shabbat. Okay. Your toilet is now not usable. There's a clogged toilet, right? So over here, to go ahead and to just unclog it with a plunger would not be allowed because you would be fixing your toilet. What do you do when this happens? It has definitely happened to me a bunch of times. So the first option is, because it is such a very sensitive need, everybody has to have a bathroom in their house. So that would be a case where you could potentially ask a goy if you have one available to help you out. Or if that's not an option, you could work together with another person, plunge with two people. Remember, as we've learned in the past, when you take something that could be done by one person, and you do it instead with two people, you lower it to something which is not prohibited on a Torah level, but rather on a rabbinic level. Therefore, that would be a much better option. Now, you should know that this whole discussion is when it's really, really clogged. In other words, it's not going down at all. Sometimes, however, you'll see when a toilet is clogged, it actually does go down. It's partially flowing. So now, if that's the case, then you yourself could do it. The reason is because it's not really broken to the point where we say it's not a functioning vessel. It is functioning, it just takes some time. It's going to go down, it just takes a little bit of time. You see, eventually come back a few minutes later, it goes down. So in that case, you yourself will be allowed to do it. Liquid plumber? That's a good question. That's a good question. If that's fixing it, then the answer is no. In other words, if it's totally not working,
That's gonna be.
that would be Makeh BePatish, exactly. That's fixing the thing.
Can two people hold it?
Can two people put the liquid plumber? Again, that would be a much, if you think that's going to work and you don't have a goy, which a goy would be a much better option, then yeah.
Just explain why two people makes it better. If the two
It's a
people are doing
pasuk.
worse
It's a pasuk in the Torah. Pasuk in the Torah says, what does it says? What does it say? Pasuk says, I'm trying to remember exactly. Basically, the Gemara says, Shnaim sha'asu pturim. Two people who do something are exempt. So it says ba'asota, right? It says, that's the word, ba'asota, which means when that soul did an avera, right? It says in Parashat Vayikra, nefesh ki techta bishgaga ve'ma'al ba'Hashem ba'asota achat mimitzot Hashem asher lo ta'asena ve'Hashem. Person did a sin that neshama ba'asota when it did a sin, which means yachid ve'asa if it's only one person and he did a one-person job, he's chayav. But shnaim sha'asa'ua, but two people that did it, pturim, they're exempt, right? So therefore, it's simply a pasuk in the Torah that if it's a one-person job and one guy did it, he is chayav. He has to bring a sin offering in Bet Mikdash, but that is to the exclusion of two people who did a one-person job. They're exempt.
That's obviously in the situations where you're like stuck. It's not like for everything that.
No, it's not saying they're allowed. Meaning the Torah is saying they're exempt from a sin offering,
Oh,
but
so
the
it just
rabbi still
lowers the-
made it forbidden.
Uh-huh.
So in other words, two people, we like if you and I go and together pluck an apple off the tree, it doesn't make it allowed now, right? But there's a dispensation for a very kind of great need that the rabbis said, you know what, even though generally we say it's bad, but for this, we'll let you do it because you need your toilet.
Got it.
That's basically the idea. So again, better to ask a goy. That way you're not involved at all. But if you really are stuck and nobody can use the bathroom, so then that would be a much better option to do it with two people.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Every time Rabbi said the glory, I started that Goy of Shabbat this week in Kikar Shabbat, news in Kikar Shabbat, Goy of Shabbat of the community passed away. So they want to bury him in cemetery Goyim. The family came and says, no, he's a Jew.
Oh wow.
So every time they
So you gotta find out, ahead of time. Where was this? Was this here? Is this in America? In Israel. Okay. In Israel it makes much sense. Yeah, much more sense.
But in
Over
this
here,
country-
sometimes you really know the guy is But yeah.
He was a Shabbat.
He was they were treating him like a goy, he was a Jew, unfortunately. Okay. Some more Makeh BePatish issues continued. Here we go. Cracking a stick light, one of those glow-in-the-dark stick lights, right? To make the item glow in the dark. You just made a functioning vessel. Easy Makeh BePatish. Let's say a person opens up a book and there are pages that were definitely meant to be detached, but they were still attached. And now you take a knife and you cut them down the middle so that they are, in other words, the printer never actually properly detached the pages. And now you just made the vessel because it was never detached. You created it right now. We already spoke about last week the idea of the metal bottle cap, that's for sure. Creating a vessel, right? What about scraping rust off cutlery, right? You have rust over different types of things. That's also something that's broken or it needs a repair. And you repair it, that's a big problem as well. Sharpening knives is Makeh BePatish. You have a knife that is not perfect. It's very dull. And you want to sharpen that knife. Sharpen the blade, that's called Makeh BePatish. It's a big mitzvah, as a matter of fact. The Gemara says to sharpen your knife on Friday so that you have an enjoyable time cutting. What?
It's a mitzvah.
So I said, it's a big mitzvah. Yeah. To sharpen your knife on Friday. Yeah.
Question.
Yes.
If you have dishes, and you have a cup, kiddush cup.
Yep.
you have just one else, and it's silver, and you want to wash it, but you like to wash it with soap for silver.
No, that would be a memoriach problem. The polish. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay. Good. Sharpening knives are a problem. Now we did talk about in the past removing the dangling price tag, right? That's going to be okay. The dangling price tag, you can take it off. Why? Because it's not sewn into the garment. And we said that that's not called fixing the garment. It's like kind of removed already from the garment. And therefore, it's not considered to be Makeh BePatish, right? You understand why one might think it would be Makeh BePatish, right? I have a tag on my suit. I don't want to walk around like this. Removing the tag is fixing the suit. What's the answer? Not fixing the suit. The suit is perfect. It's just that you've got this thing that's preventing you from wearing it. Okay, remove it.
But isn't it better not to rip?
In this case, you're allowed to. It's ripping for a purpose, meaning for it's a destructive act for a Shabbat need, which would be okay. Okay, now.
So it's not better to do it, to not do it?
You're allowed to do it. You're allowed to do it. Yes.
What about like the one that's like in the back inside that's like sewn on?
Is it a plastic dangling tag?
Not like the price, but like what's like the brand?
A brand, like
This is
like a
like
tag
size,
that's sewn
yeah.
into the shirt? You know, it might be a little bit worse. That's meant to be there.
Right. So you
Yeah,
gotta be careful.
I don't think so. No. Okay. What about when you buy a new shirt and there are pins in the shirt? Now you want to take out the pin so you could wear the shirt. That's going to be a-okay, no problem. Why? Because the pins, again, are not part of the shirt. It's not fixing the shirt. It's just removing something which is preventing you from wearing the shirt. So it's not fixing the shirt. That's going to be okay. We spoke about this already. Bending back a bent spoon or a metal skewer. You bend it back into shape. That's also Makeh BePatish. It was not perfect. You fixed an imperfection. That's called Makeh BePatish. We spoke about shetels, no spraying, shaping, resetting a shetel on Shabbat. That's Makeh BePatish. Or cutting the shetel. That's also called Makeh BePatish. If you want to cut it on Shabbat, that's a problem. If you want to inflate a ball for the first time, say you got a new soccer ball, you want to inflate it. Do not inflate the ball for the first time on Shabbat because that is making a vessel. Welcome. Right? That's making a vessel. That's a big problem. You can't inflate the ball on Shabbat. However, if you had already inflated it with air before Shabbat, then to put in a little bit more air is not a problem because the ball is already a functioning vessel. They just kind of fill a little bit more air. It's not considered making a vessel.
You can use like a pump to do it.
Yeah.
What about an air mattress? Same thing, like started. Well, like
That's
got
making a
little-
vessel.
But you inflated it before
Oh, it was
Shabbat,
inflated before Shabbat.
like,
Just need a little.
it's not- yeah, it needs a little-
And how do you? In other words, the machine is already on before Shabbat.
No, let's say you-
Use the pump, and it's already a functioning thing. It just wants to be a little more.
Yeah.
I think that would be the same thing. That'd be okay.
Second question, is
Yeah.
when we talk about like bent cups, are we talking about like the thin plastic cups that like, people?
No. I'm talking about like metal. Like a metal thing is out of shape, and you bend it back into shape.
So plastic cups that like doesn't have.
You're not really doing anything. Yeah. Okay. adding protective cups on furniture legs could be considered Makeh BePatish because you're, again, adding something to make it better. Repairing a bent or loose staple in a booklet. Interesting. You have a staple in a bunch of sheets, and the staple is like a little bit sticking out, and you go shoot just to make the back of it better, right? That's okay, Patish. Okay, very good. Now there are some rabbinic, yeah.
Sorry, in the staple example, but isn't the booklet like already stapled? You're just making it better.
Yeah, but I'm saying sometimes that staple, it like sticks out, and then it could like scratch somebody.
Yeah.
So what you do is you just kind of fix it. So you made it, you fixed it.
You fixed it from hitting someone, not fixing the booklet saying.
Correct.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, I'm reading on Shabbat in pages.
Okay.
So every time I finish reading, I fold it up. Okay?
Fold the corner.
No, to fold the pages to know that I finished with that.
No problem. No problem. Okay. Now, Chazal made certain rules on Shabbat because of the fear that if you do this, you may come to create a vessel or fix a vessel. Okay. The first one is that you cannot play an instrument on Shabbat. The reason you can't play an instrument on Shabbat is because if one of the strings were to break, you would have to go replace it and put in a new string. That would be Makeh BePatish because you're fixing the vessel, tightening that string. They took it to the next level by prohibiting dancing and clapping on Shabbat. Okay, clapping to a rhythm, right? The reason that they prohibited that again is because you might come to take out an instrument and play the instrument, which might then break and then they took it to an extensive level. Now,
So you're not allowed to clap on Shabbat?
to a rhythm, correct. However, the opinion of Tosfot in Masechet Beitzah is, and the Rambam brings this down, this is not the Sephardi Psak, this is a big leniency by the Ashkenazim, which there are many who do hold by, and that is that Tosfot held that you are allowed to clap nowadays because of the fact that it's just not something that people find themselves doing when they clap. They take out an instrument and then have this concern. Now, does that change the psak for Sfaradim? No. But if somebody is lenient and is dancing and clapping on Shabbat and he's all happy and maybe making a rhythm, etc., don't give him a hard time.
Like people
Right? That's
also
number one.
say
Right. Now, one thing that the Sfaradim do is that if you slightly change your clap so that you remind yourself that there's a rabbinic rule that I'm not supposed to clap to a rhythm on Shabbat, and I slightly change how I do it. So if I normally go 1, 2, 3, instead I go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, like that, and then you do this whole kind of thing so that you change you deviate from the normal way. So then, together with the opinion of Tosfot, they're lenient. Some kind of slight deviation. I will be very honest with you. This is one of the things that is it's a little bit harder for me personally, because when I lead the tefillot on Shabbat, sometimes I like to get them to have a little bit more of a rhythm because I want people to sing along, etc. And I find that it helps when I do that. So I do find myself relying on the opinion of Tosfot multiple times, and whatever is what it is. Okay, fine. Yeah.
But like, let's say if somebody has a simcha, people do like all these like, they say. Yeah, they do. They do these things like. So is that okay? I'm saying, is that okay if like people?
Yeah, I mean,
to a rhythm.
That's totally fine. You could sing to a rhythm. You can do that to a rhythm. It's all good.
But when it
The
comes
question
to
is
using
making a rhythm with your hands or by banging or
people
like that.
banging on the table.
Yeah,
sometimes.
that's a question. That's something which the Shulchan Aruch says not to do. The only time Shulchan Aruch does let you do it is the exception of Simchat Torah. Simchat Torah, the Shulchan Aruch says that they waived the prohibition, and therefore you are allowed to dance and clap on Simchat Torah, no problem, it's all good, according to all opinions. Whistling is okay too. What?
Sorry, can you go with your tapping?
I guess that's a kind of a change from the way you normally do that, so I guess that'll be okay. But you may not blow a whistle on Shabbat. You may not blow a shofar on Shabbat. As we know, this year Shabbat is the first day of Rosh Hashanah, so therefore we don't blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah, first day. We don't. There's a big question about, can you knock on those door knockers? You know, those, the ones that you pull the thing that go bop, bop, bop like that. Or is that called using an instrument? Some are strict. Better to just bang on the door. Yeah. Okay. Very good. Yes.
You said you can whistle from your mouth.
Whistle from your mouth. Yes, but not from one of those, those referee whistles. Okay. Another prohibition that Chazal said is forbidden to do on Shabbat is to dip. Well, it's an interesting question, actually. It's not so simple. I can't say it's a prohibition that Chazal instituted. The reason being that it is a machloket harishonim whether this is prohibited on Shabbat. Let's say you buy a brand new vessel. Can you take it to the mikveh on Shabbat? You bought a brand new glass bowl. You want to serve the salad in it. Can you dip it in the mikveh on Shabbat? So Shulchan Aruch brings down two opinions. And Shulchan Aruch says because of the more stringent opinion, what you do if you did not dip your vessel before Shabbat in the mikveh is you gift it on Shabbat to a Gentile, and that way it's owned by a goy and therefore exempt from the obligation of Tevilat Kelim. Because if a goy owns it, then you can't. Then there's no mitzvah to dip it in the mikveh. So then after Shabbat, he gifts it back to you, and then you dip it in the mikveh. This solution, by the way, is not something which you should use generally speaking. In other words, you can't just avoid the mitzvah to dip vessels in the mikveh. You're supposed to dip them in the mikveh. You can't just give it to a goy. The problem over here is that according to some, you can't do it on Shabbat. So to avoid that, you give it to a goy. I used this once for myself in a non-Shabbat way. For something that was absolutely going to get destroyed. I researched it. It was an ice maker. The ice machine, this ice maker, if I were to dip it, they all said it was going to get destroyed. So there was really no way to dip it in the mikveh. So in that case, I actually had a housekeeper at the time that I gifted it to, and then I asked her to borrow it back. She looked at me like I was insane. I told her, listen, this is a gift for you. She's like, very happy. Like, now listen, do me a favor. Can you please let me use it? And she said, I don't get it. Right? I was like, I want to borrow it. So she's like, well, you just gave it to me as a gift. I didn't ask you to give it to me as a gift. I said, I know, but can I borrow it? And she never came back. She never came back to my house. I actually have a video of it. Somebody took a video of it. And it was quite awkward. But that's what it is. But I could, I wanted to see what happens. So she owns my ice maker till this day. I don't even know if she can. Yeah. It doesn't matter if it's cold. It's a vessel that your food will touch. If it was made by a goy, you have to dip it in the mikveh. In this particular case, I couldn't because it was going to break it. So that's what I did. I relied on the heter of giving it to a goy, and in this case, it was indefinitely. It wasn't going to be, that I'm going to dip it at some point. But in general, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to give it to a goy just for Shabbat, because after Shabbat, you're going to take it back and dip it. That's what we're learning over here. Okay, good. Another important rule that, again, this is, why are we talking about that now? Because to dip it, according to some, would be an act of fixing the vessel. You couldn't use the vessel before. I dipped it in the mikveh, so now I fixed it. I made it a usable vessel. So that, according to some, is a quasi Makeh BePatish, and therefore Chazal said that. Well, again, I can't say Chazal said because Machloket Rishonim, But according to the Shulchan Aruch, the best solution would be to give it to a goy, and that way, for Shabbat, you could use it. Important thing to remember, when a goy owns the vessel, there is no obligation to dip it in the mikveh. Okay, good. Now, another similar restriction Chazal created on Shabbat. You're not allowed to separate challah on Shabbat. What happens if somebody, talking in America or outside of Israel, somebody baked a dough into a beautiful challah or a beautiful cake, and they did not separate challah at all? So we hold that you are allowed to separate challah after it was baked. You go to the challah, you take off a piece of it, and you separate it, rezu challah, and that's how you do it, right? On Shabbat, however, you can't. You can't go and separate the challah on Shabbat. Again, why? Because it's like fixing it to a certain degree. Because, of course, you're supposed to do it when it's a dough. Of course, this person forgot. So they forgot, and you're not supposed to do it that way. Like you said, you're supposed to do it when it's a dough, but if you forgot, you could do it after it's baked. Yes. I had a friend that he was very strict on these halachot, and he knew that there are certain bakeries that are not so strict on taking challah from cakes, from the dough that they make for cakes. So at his engagement party, I saw him going over to every single cake at his engagement and taking off a piece of it. Harezu challah, for all of the. True story. Nachum, my friend, he's a big tzaddik. Yeah.
For cakes?
Sure. Meaning when you make a dough, you make a batter, right? I mean, if you use the 5 pounds of flour, right? So then it's no difference, right? That you have to say with a bracha. After you're making it into a cake, doesn't make a difference. If you're, let's say, doing donuts, that's a different story. But if you're gonna bake it, then that's something that.
If you're gonna make like pizza dough.
Yeah.
No, you're not intending to like making challah. You're still doing.
It's got nothing to do with challah. If you want to make a sourdough, you want to make a loaf of bread, you want to make pizza dough.
Anything 5 pounds, you have to.
5 pounds is when you have to say it with a bracha. But even if it's less than that, like 2, I don't know exactly that. I forgot the number.
3 cups, 3.
I forgot exactly the number. I'll get it back to you.
Heinz cake, though, right?
Duncan Hines is too little. It's one small bag. I don't think it's enough. But if you make it, if you have enough, then that would be that. I'll get you the numbers. Not there. I don't remember offhand. Yes.
Burn it once the day after the Seder, or you can burn it the day after. Is it okay to do the day after?
You should do it before it spoils, I think. Before it spoils, yes.
So we can do it on Thursday night and we burn it on Friday.
Saying if you do it before it goes bad, before it goes sour.
I think you should just do
What
it
I
as
do,
soon
what
as
I tell my wife, sometimes I saw some poskim say you could double wrap it and just throw it out.
no burn.
Yeah. Yeah, just double wrap it and throw it out. Makes a whole bunch of questions when you do it on your oven racks. If it touches the oven racks, it could make it treif because it's not supposed to be for your. It's supposed to go for the kohen, and we're
But what if the
what?
animals?
You double wrap it.
No, but even still, like.
Okay, maybe that's a big leniency. There are some who say it's a big leniency, but I saw it and it's something which people could I think rely on. Okay, now I just wanted to point out. So what do you do? So you can't separate challah on Shabbat, and you didn't separate challah. What do you do? So what you do is, at least outside of Israel, you are allowed to eat the challah and leave a little bit of it over. So at the end, you didn't finish the challah, and after Shabbat, you're going to say Arezu challah, and that's it. Okay?
Question.
Yeah.
Is it possible we gather all the challah that we take? Okay? And we take one challah, we put on the side, and Motzei Shabbat, we say Arezu challah.
You can't do it on Shabbat. You can't. That would be like afrasha. You can't do that on
We
Shabbat.
don't say anything.
Then what's the point of you putting them together? You're trying to do afrasha. You can't do that on Shabbat. Yeah. Okay, good. Let's keep going. Yeah, let's keep going. So, swimming on Shabbat in a river, a pond, a lake, or an ocean is 100% forbidden by rabbinical decree. That is because it says Shema Ya'aseh Chavit Shel Shayatin. Used to have people that like to float around in the water, and they didn't like having a hard time. So they created flotation devices for themselves. And that was called Chavit Shel Shayatin, the floaters or the swimmer's barrel. And people used to make that for themselves. So Chazal made an isur to swim in a river, a pond, a lake, or an ocean, because of the fact that there is a decree he might come to make something that will make his floating a little bit easier. So for that reason, that is asur. Similarly, you're not allowed to make things float in a river or a pond. So if you want to, cause something to float over there, Chazal said we should not do that. Now, I know people are going to think, well, what if you're going to swim in a pool, which does not have the problem of Chavit Shel Shayatin, because it's a pool that's surrounded by walls and just hold on to the wall. It's not that big of a deal. Nevertheless, the modern poskim say, I spoke about this with Chacham David Yosef, Shlita, may he live and be well. Chacham David Yosef, may he live and be well. Shlita, right? So it says, so he told me that this is considered to be what we call uvdin dechol, a weekday activity, which is still prohibited to be done on Shabbat.
What?
Swimming even in a regular pool. It's what we would call uvdin dechol, and that is forbidden to be done on Shabbat. Okay.
What about going?
And definitely not to go Chalila v'chas to a mixed pool, right? At least men, at the very least, should not go to a place where there are ladies that are bathing, not even on Shabbat, even on a weekday. Big problem. Okay.
So what?
And everyone should know, B'ezras Hashem, ladies, all your husbands, God willing, they decide they want to go to a mixed pool, say no, right? Not you, right? You don't go there. Put your foot down, right? Mixed beach, mixed whatever pool, not an option. And don't schlep him to the beach. I know wives like that too. They want to go to the beach. Oh, you won't look. I don't need to say anything further. Yeah.
What if you have your own pool? Or what if you have your own villa that you go to?
That's what I'm talking about.
No, so I'm saying and what if you have I don't know, your whole family for Pesach or whatever.
Not on Shabbat.
No, not on Shabbat. No, but I'm saying let's say you have everybody together. Is that considered mixed?
Well, I mean, it depends on the situation exactly. There are little details you got to know. There are little details that will make a difference. Is it sisters-in-law? Is it daughters-in-law? Is it who's there? Sometimes it's okay, sometimes not okay. It depends. Okay. And what? Yes.
Okay, so swimming in a pool prohibited just the Rabbanan?
Yes. Now, if you are in a place without an eruv, by the way, it could be deraita. When you come out, you're carrying the water. It's a problem.
Is your backyard considered carrying if it's connected to your backyard?
Depends if it's surrounded or not.
If it's surrounded by a gate?
If it's totally surrounded, then it's allowed. You could carry there.
But what if I'm carrying books from my house into the gated area?
So it depends on if you have enough of an enclosure from the front or not. In other words, if let's say your back is enclosed, but the front is totally wide open, right? Meaning, and your house doesn't open up into the back, but let's say there's a big space from the area that your house is and that enclosed area on the back, that's a big problem, right? There are lots of technicalities about each house and each situation.
So what
Depends.
about a mikveh?
What about a
If
mikveh?
you have to go to the mikveh on Shabbat.
Mikveh is not uvdin dechol. Mikveh is a mitzvah. It's being done because of the fact that you have a mitzvah to go. So therefore, that's not a weekday thing. That's a big mitzvah to go. Okay, and don't push that off. That's important to remember as well. Person should go even on Friday nights. That's a big mitzvah. It should not be pushed off. Okay, and molid reach, another type of Makeh BePatish, when you introduce a fragrance into clothing. one is not allowed to introduce a fragrance, a nice smell into clothing. You have a nice perfume you want to wear, you can put it on your skin, you can't put it on your clothing. The reason is because that's called, in a sense, again, this is rabbinic stuff. It's not really fixing your garment. Your garment is great, but you're introducing this nice smell into it. That's kind of an act of fixing. For that reason, it is problematic to be done on Shabbat. You can put it on your skin, that's fine. You're not fixing your skin. It's not called an act of fixing meaning Chazal weren't concerned that we would consider this to be an act of fixing, but by clothing, it would indeed be a problem. Okay, and one last point.
By clothing, it's a problem.
By clothing, it's
But on your skin, it's not a problem.
Correct.
You said the opposite.
Sorry, my mistake. If it was, so by clothing, it is a problem, and by skin, it is not a problem. Thank you. Okay, and one last point that I'd like to make is that there's a big machloket poskim about Makeh BePatish be'ochalim, foods. Is there Makeh BePatish by foods? Does it apply to when you want to fix or change a food? For example, I've got challah. I want to make the challah into toast, right? Can I take the challah, put it on the hot plate in order that it should become toast? Yes or no? I've got rice. I want to make the rice into tadik. Can I put it on the hot plate so that it gets nice and crunchy and becomes tadik? So that is a machloket between the Ben Ish Chai and Chacham Vadia. The Ben Ish Chai held that it is a problem. Chacham Vadia holds, and he brings many proofs to this, en Makeh BePatish be'ochalim. There is no such thing by any kind of a food of Makeh BePatish. For that reason, he allows you to make toast on Shabbat. For that, in other words, the fact that you improved it, fixed it, quote unquote, made it better, is not going to be considered a problem of Makeh BePatish, and therefore it's okay. When it comes to tadik, that would be the same story, right? Because it's rice, made it a little bit crunchier. That's not called Makeh BePatish. In his view, there is no Makeh BePatish by food. Baruch Hashem, I think we are done for tonight. Mitzvot. We're almost done with the 39 Melachot, everybody. It's a big accomplishment. Mitzvot. Hopefully, we come into the new year with most of the Melachot, if not all, under our belt, God willing. Baruch Hashem. Mitzvot.